Matt was actually referred to me by an insurance broker that I knew, and he was a young bloke, had just purchased a business, or his boss's business, so he'd done an apprenticeship with, it came time for the guy to retire, and Matt decided that he was going to buy the business. So yeah, that's where he came in, and is not your typical tradesman. Matt's aspirations are more of a business person. He's obviously fairly good on the tools as well, but he's got higher aspirations to get ahead, which is great, because it helps when you've got somebody that actually wants to get ahead, but actually is prepared to do something about it. And that's where he's different. Oh, Matt's a good bloke.
Yeah.
With everybody that we work with, I think it's fairly important that you can actually get on with a person, and getting on is going to involve, it can't all be business. You've got to be able to have a chat about what's happening in somebody's personal life. You've got to be able to have a laugh about the Tigers beating the Bulldogs. You've got to have a lot of laughs about these things here. Not that I've had much of a laugh with that, but you've got to be able to have the opportunity to connect as people.
Yeah.
And once you can connect as people, the rest of it comes together. When we first started with Matt, he was probably, if memory serves me correct, about the $600,000 or thereabout turnover. Part of the conversation was, well, where do you see your business going? Because it's pointless sticking you into a Ferrari if all you want to do is go down to the shops and come back.
Yeah.
So after ascertaining where he wanted to actually take his business, but the first thing we did is actually do a restructure, because he wasn't set up to be in partnership. Well, the way he was set up, he was going to be in partnership with the tax office.
Right.
So it was going to be a matter of paying so much tax and the rest of it. So, and also there was the asset protection. So one of the first things we did was, he was single at the time, but was a guy that definitely saw marriage in the pipeline, saw a family in the pipeline, saw a house in the pipeline. So it was fairly important to actually consider how he was trading and what the best structure to set him up in, keeping in consideration the fact that he was going to be looking at minimising his tax, protecting his assets, and probably getting married and starting a family at some point in time.
Yeah, right.
Which has just actually happened. He's gotten married and the rest of it, so he's been married now for a while and bought his house, so it's good to see that people are getting ahead in that respect.
Yeah, right. So the vision that you saw and the structure that you put in place turned out to be the right structure.
Yeah. Well, from the conversations, it was very apparent he needed the Ferrari as opposed to the Mini.
Right.
So as the Ferrari, you just got to make sure the structure is correct.
Yeah.
A lot of people, what will happen with a lot of businesses is they will balk at what the initial cost is going to be of actually getting the structure right. But that structure is the foundations. And if you don't get your foundations right, I always use the analogy, if you're building a house and you don't have solid foundations, you can only build what you're planning for. Now, if later on your family expands and you want to put another story on top and another story on top, those foundations are not going to carry the house, and effectively it's going to cost you a lot more money to try to fix it later on down the track rather than having it done properly to start with. Yeah. And he adopted that philosophy as well. He understood that philosophy and said, all right, well, let's just do it properly from the start. Yeah. And that's how it's worked out. He was an NYB desktop user, and one of the very, very first things that we did was migrated all his accounts into the cloud. Okay, now the definite advantages there was he was used, like his relationship with dealing with his previous accountant was, I'll send my NYB file to the accountant, I can't use it, I can't invoice, I can't do anything, or if I did, then I'm going to have to advise a client with the accountant of what I've done, or we're going to have to take up journal entries. It was very messy.
Yeah.
When we took him into the cloud, he just loved it. He took to it like a duck to water, because he could actually see how transparent his business was to him. So the dashboards that were set up and everything else, he could see what his cash flow position was going to be, what his bank accounts are sitting at. So it made him far more aware of where his business was at. Between setting him up in the cloud, which also gave us instant transparency, like if ever a client phones me up, the first thing I'm going to do is actually log on to their file and have a look at how they're sitting, because I want to be able to actually have that conversation with them and point things out. Even if they're not calling me about something that may be related to their accounts, it's still always nice to be able to sort of say, well, how are you going with your receivables? Your bank rec hasn't been done yet. What's going on?
Yeah, what's
okay. With Matt, what we did is we set him up in the cloud. We set budgets, so we sat down together and actually work out the budget, and we do this religiously every year. And funnily enough, it's Matt that instigates it.
Great.
Matt's always the one that says, mate, we've got to get together, we've got to do the budget for the following year, because it helps keep him on track. He knows what he's got to try to achieve.
Yeah.
So we'll do the budgets annually. We'll meet on a quarterly basis to go through the management reports and have a discussion around how he's going in comparison to where he said he was going to be. We manage his taxes, so as he's going throughout the year, he's got an idea of what his expected tax liabilities are going to be, what his cash flow requirements are going to be. It basically helps him run his own business.
Yeah, brilliant.
And he also talks about other things, like we'll talk about employment, we'll talk about trying to win new work and how he's going about winning new work. I'm always there to push people along and question why they're doing what they're doing. So Matt's one of those guys that takes challenges in his stride. So I can't say that I've been instrumental in helping him through his challenges, but I know that I have actually talked with him about his challenges, and a lot of the times, like he's actually likened his quarterly meetings with us, it's almost like a psychotherapy sort of thing as well, where he gets to sort of discuss the various aspects. So I'd imagine that he does see the value in that, because again, he's the one that's always instigating, saying, mate, we've got our quarterly meeting coming up, when are we going to meet?
And therefore his lifestyle's pretty good now?
Well, he's gotten into a house. Welcome to the land of mortgage.
Yeah.
But I think things are on track for him. I think he'll do well. He's one of these guys that you sort of say, watch his space.